keeps us from seeing the abundance of God's grace, because we hold on to these moments when the earth seemed parched and we don't see the fruition. So this idea came to me in prayer. It was a great big mirror. Dad's standing next to me, and I see my physical form in the mirror. That's the physical stuff, the personality, the DNA stuff. We all have to deal with it. And I thought that's all I was what you see. And Dad got drunk, and he picked up some mud, and he spread it all over that image, and I looked at that image, and I thought, I've been messed with, and I'm going to live my life trying to clean that act up or react to it, depending on where I was. And suddenly, Mrs. Eddy gave me a new sense of man. Man, wonderful sense of man that I've given to you. Exercise this God-given authority. God-given authority. Take possession of your body, which to me meant the body of your thoughts. Govern its feeling and action, and rise in the strength of spirit to resist all that is unlike good. I started thinking about it. Dad was standing next to me. We were looking at this image. He'd spread that mud when he was drunk. I wasn't in that image. I was outside of it. I'm made of spiritual qualities. Dad missed my spiritual qualities. They were never touched. He was innocent of alcoholism. His DNA thoughts never touched his beautiful spiritual creativity and originality and beauty. And the war that he went through, World War II, when he saw these horrible things, never touched the life of his precious friends. Life is way more than what we see with our eyes, and I had this sense of forgiveness that went to the heart of my dear birth dad and wrapped him in the eyes of love. To such a wonderful degree that I got a call years after Dad abandoned us, and I didn't know where he was, because I'd been thinking about father qualities. I wasn't too surprised, and I'd been translating qualities of father and writing them on pieces of paper and claiming the honesty, the integrity, the purity, the dependability, and don't forget the richness of God's fatherhood. And I had all these qualities. I was falling in love with a new sense of father. Mother remarried, and I got a new dad. The law of love is, if you know the truth, the Lord's Prayer said, on earth as it is in heaven. Once you know the right idea, the music comes through and the static is gone. That's healing. And you know, my precious dad, even though I didn't know anything about him and he didn't know anything about me, one day I realized I only had one source, and it was God, the source of all spiritual qualities. The invisible music of reality was my cause, my father, my mother, my true nature, my substance. And it was such a relief. I had this huge, huge weight lifted off my heart, and I cried that September day. Well, a year and a half later, my husband went overseas in the military, and Dad found me. He searched me down, and my birth dad had called me, and he said, Ginny, something happened to me last September. He said, I think you had something to do with it. And I was just really wondering, because this was when I realized we have one source. We have one Father, Mother. That's why the Lord's Prayer says, our Father. All of us. Nobody's left out. He said, I was laying by the side of a river, and he said I was a bum, and it was a mess. He told me what he looked like. It was awful. He said, I'd been on a binge. I've had 2 wives, and you have 2 half-sisters, and my life's been a disaster, and he was sobbing. He said, I woke up from that binge, I reached in my pocket, and I found a coin, and it was just what I needed. I don't know where it came from, to make a phone call, and I hiked up this grassy hill, and I called AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I asked them to come and get me. He said they did, and he said, I haven't wanted to drink since. Did you have something to do with this? And I loved what Mrs. Eddy had taught me, that everyone your thought rests on when you know the truth is lifted up. Nobody's left out of the light of spiritual reality. I told my dad about what I'd been studying and about fatherhood and how I'd really been holding him in the love of God. And I turned my thought away from the phone as I'm thinking, what's going on here? This is amazing. This is so exciting. And God said to me, if I be lifted up, will draw all men unto me. Ginny, you were lifted up above your belief, the static, in an alcoholic dad, and that freed him. And for 22 years, Dad and I talked on the phone. I saw him a couple times, and he met my children. And he never had or wanted another drink. And it was at that moment when I thought, we can do this. We can be lifted up. This world needs us to be lifted up above all the static thoughts, one thought at a time. We can challenge what comes into our space and say, no, that is not of God. That's not the reality of this moment. In this moment, to all mankind, to those in the war, to those in Afghanistan, to those we think have passed on, to all mankind. And in every hour, divine love supplies all good. And to me, I didn't feel like I was that great. I was just, I had a very poor education. Mine was a college of hard knocks and got all kinds of things going on, but I could be lifted up. What does it require to be lifted up? When a little child comes up to you, he puts his arms up. And if you're willing to put your arms up, and you're willing to be lifted up, you're made to heal. You're created to heal. What's in you is enough to heal. And to me, healing is just in his eyes. We can see what God saw and what Jesus saw. And my precious friend, Mary Baker Eddy, had an experience that because we're in an economy right now that needs some lifting up thoughts, I want to share. She lived by this farmer who used to supply the milk to their home, their household, where she was doing the things she did as the discoverer and founder of an international way of thinking that really was blessing a world. And this farmer came to the door one day and said, I'm not going to be able to bring any milk. The weather is, my well's gone dry, we don't have any rain, and the cows aren't producing. And this lady the lady who answered the door went to Mrs. Eddy and she said what had happened. And Mrs. Eddy's response was, oh, if he only knew, love fills that well. And the next day the farmer came back and he said, I don't understand it. I went out to the well and it was completely full and we didn't even have any rain. What a wonderful expression of knowing the truth and how it produces the natural result of seeing the music of love's presence that leaves no one out. Challenge the earth's view of life. Stand up for what's real. Find that courage within you to do what you're hearing about in this music. And in his eyes, we're abundantly loved. We're complete. We're blessed. We're not lonely. And we don't bury anybody we loved. We continue to love them. We translate their qualities and hold them even closer. Someday, we'll see that God got here first and he's not going anywhere and you're loved.